If you had 1 day left to live, would you tell anyone?
Would I tell anybody?
Yeah, you have 1 day left to live. Do you tell anyone?
Because maybe telling people would make the day worse because then everyone's just stressing about it.
Exactly. Everyone's stressing and you're spending that entire day telling people that it's your last day. Is that how you would want to spend it?
Because then everyone's just freaking out and you're not actually getting to enjoy it.
Exactly.
Honestly, I don't think I would. Maybe a couple people? Maybe towards the end of the day? What would you do?
I was thinking about it yesterday. Maybe I would tell you, like mom and dad, but I think I would keep it at that.
Just so we could all like hang out?
Or just to give you guys a little forewarning that, you know, this is my last day alive.
Well, I'd want to know because imagine if you're like, Sammy, hey, do you want to go get food right now? And I was like, I can't, I'm busy. And then the next day I find out it was your last day and you knew.
Mm-hmm. But does that mean you were actually busy, or would you just have made time because it was my last day alive?
Exactly. So maybe we should just treat every day like that because then we'll get our priorities straight.
Exactly. Yeah, and you'll be doing everything as though you had a second chance of living. It's like it's a stoic thought of, okay, pretend that you were dead and you have now come back to life. How would you live knowing that you got a second chance? And you do so much differently because you died before and you don't want to take anything for granted anymore.
I like that. That's so interesting. Because yeah, if you just randomly one day were like, hey, let's go do this. If I had other like music things I was working on, I probably would be like, maybe tomorrow, maybe later or whatever. But if it was your last day, obviously I'd be like, oh, okay, we gotta. It's the same thing when you're on trips with people. When you're on trips with somebody, you're like so much more. They're more valuable to you because they're more scarce. Like if it's like a friend that lives far away and then you're like on a trip together, you spend every second together. Whereas then when you're at home, if a friend hits you up to hang, you're like, maybe next week.
Yeah, like they're always here. This can always happen. But that's just not true. We trick ourselves into thinking that it always happens, but there's no guarantee that we're gonna wake up tomorrow. There's nothing that we can do in order to know with 100% certainty that we will wake up and get another opportunity to do whatever we want tomorrow.
That's so tricky though, because that's something that I always kind of like grapple with is the best way to spend my time, because a big part of me is like I want to put all my energy into music and everything into furthering my career. But then another part of me is like, okay, well, don't forget to live life and be social a little bit every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. I think it comes down to, at the end of the day, if you can look back on your day and you don't regret a single thing that you've done, I think that's a good way to have spent it. But if you get in bed, you're thinking about the day, you're reflecting, and you wish you had done one thing instead of something else, like you wish you had, let's say we wanted to go to the beach, if you wished we had gone down to the beach, but you instead spent some more time working on music, then that would be a little bit different. But that kind of segues into a second question I have on that same topic is, you have 1 day left to live. What does that day look like for you?
I think about this too, because I heard a thing that was like, if you spent every day of your life how you spent today, what would 1 year from now look like? Or what would 5 years from now look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that because I'm like, okay, well, if I spent every day just only doing music, then in 5 years, maybe I'd have 100 million monthly listeners, but would I have any friends or relationships with anybody? Or like, you know, it's about balancing it. So I wonder on my last day what I would do, because like, I want to make a song, but then part of me is like, well, that would take a little bit and it's your last day. So don't you want to go and live life?
Mm-hmm. Because of course you get the joy from making music, but a part of you is, okay, I'm going to work on music super hard right now for the reason of kind of delaying, not delaying happiness sounds bad because, you're still happy while you're making music, but delaying the serenity of having the freedom to choose completely whatever you want. Because right now it's been better, but for a while you were only music, and now you have much more freedom. And then to have that type of freedom in the future you focus on music.
Right, but it's not. I wouldn't even say it's for the freedom in the future, and I wouldn't even say it's delaying happiness, because right now, if I wanted to, I could go to Mexico for a year and just live on the beach. But I've realized from my own experience that I get more fulfillment and satisfaction from creating songs and playing shows specifically than I do from sitting on a beach in Mexico, by far. Like, by a long shot. I could be in Mexico with a beautiful girl on the beach, and after 2 days, I'm like, I just want to make a song, I want to make a video, I want to create something, I want to play a show.
Yeah, you're just itching.
Yeah, so it's not even like I'm making music now to set myself up in the future or whatever. I'm making it now because I love it. And yeah, there's like an ambitious part of me that is a big part of me that wants to work to keep growing this. But I really just enjoy the process, and it makes me feel so good to create.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how I would spend my last day though, because yes, I enjoy the process and creating, but that's really taking out the fruits of the labor 100%. It's really asking yourself, is it just the experience? Like, would you swim on your last day?
100%.
Because you just enjoy the
100%.
experience of swimming.
Yeah, I just enjoy it that much to where I'm not. I love the result. I think the result is great, but I also love the process so much. I love the way it makes me feel, to where, yeah, no doubt in my mind, if tomorrow was my last day to live, I would still wake up and go to practice tomorrow morning. That's just something I would do.
And that's totally, because it's not the result. Like, that's literally you saying, because it's not like you're gonna go hit a record next time. You don't even have the next day. It's simply because you enjoy the experience.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no guarantee that I would get a record even if I had a meet tomorrow, because right now I'm not tapered at all. My body's physically exhausted, so it's not like I would go in and break a world record or something like that. I'm doing it for the sake of doing it. What were you saying?
Oh, I think that's how everything should be. Doing it for the sake of doing it and not for an external result. Because if you're doing it for an external result, you're not really in it. You're doing it as a means to an end, and then you're not present. You're not actually enjoying it. You're thinking, oh, I'm going to do this homework assignment so that I can get into this school. And I'm going to get into this school so that I can get into this internship. And I'm going to get the internship so I can get this job. And then I'm going to get the job so I can make a lot of money. And then I'm going to make a lot. It's this whole, like you said, delaying happiness. You're waiting and waiting, and you're in a constant state of waiting for what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this genius writer once wrote that I don't remember how the first line goes, but it was talking about this guy who was working as a means to an end, and the lyric goes, he doesn't care. In 20 years he'll be a millionaire. And that goes along with the same idea that you were talking about. Shocker. Sammy wrote that lyric.
Genius lyric. It's in my song called Fantasize, and that's what that song's about. That song is so fun to play live. I love singing and hearing a whole crowd go, I don't want to waste my days doing things I hate. Such a good vibe. But that's what that song's about. It's about, so the line he's talking about is, or I'll say the whole little verse.
Yeah.
I say, she's got a body like a model, but she's still insecure. I got some money in my pocket, but still feel like I'm poor. What's the lyric? Money in my pocket, but still feel like we got to bring it back. Look at the way we act. I know. I got a friend who's out in college trading grades for the club.
He's forgetting his own lyrics.
It's because I'm talking it. When I sing it, they come.
Yeah.
I got a friend who's out in college trading grades for the club. I got a friend who's making profits, but he hates what he does. He doesn't really care. In 20 years, he'll be a millionaire. So the friend who's in college trading grades for the club, that's like a classic thing people do in college. Like they're there to experience best 4 years of your life, whatever. Like
whatever they say.
Whatever they say. They're there to party and have fun and not focus on their grades. So that's like an example of one type of person. And then there's another person who is delaying their happiness working a job that they hate, but he's making profits and he doesn't care because in 20 years he's going to be a millionaire. He's putting off 20 years of his life of not enjoying 20 years because he'll have $1 million in his bank account at the end of that, which is crazy because what's the purpose of money? The purpose of money is freedom. It's to be able to do the things you want to do. But if you spend 20 years just to be able to do the things you want to do, then there's no point.
Exactly. And I think about what happens when that person gets to the day where their bank account hits $1 million But what if they're not happy? It's like they're putting off their happiness and tying it to the idea of getting $1 million. But what if that eternal happiness that they thought was going to come once they get that $1 million, what if it's not there? And I think that would just send them down a existential pit of despair, because they had spent the last 20 years of their life putting off any type of joy in order to get to that moment, just using their life as a means to an end, just to see that 7-figure number in the bank account, that digital number. That money doesn't even exist. It's just a number. That's a whole different thing. But what if that happiness doesn't come?
Well, and I don't even think it's a what if. I think in that scenario, it's almost a guarantee that it won't, because his whole life has been in this constant habit of waiting. And when you're in the habit of waiting, then it's a habit, it's formed. And especially after 20 years, it's so ingrained in him that when he gets the $1 million, he's probably going to go, I need 10.
Mm-hmm. Or he'll just be he'll get the $1 million and he'll be so attached to the fact that he has the $1 million that he'll be too afraid to spend it. Yeah,
or like that becomes the new identity, is like, oh, I'm a millionaire now, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like that's where you get your sense of self from, but then there's no value in that.
Mm-hmm. So we just went on a huge tangent, so I'm going to tie it back. How would you spend your last day?
I don't know. I really don't. That's so hard to say. That's such an interesting thought, because the cliche is like live every day like it's your last, but
mm-hmm.
really that would be a little bit chaotic, because
definitely.
So part of me thinks like, okay, I want to travel, but then you're wasting so much time getting to that destination.
Exactly. If you wanted to fly to Europe from where we are, that's 11, 12, 13 hours just to get there, and then half of your day is gone.
Yeah, I really don't know. I thought about this before, and I never come up with a solid answer. I probably would just like get all my favorite foods and just like hang out with our family on the beach or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I asked this question to a friend of mine yesterday, and she really had to think about it, and then she gave me the answer. She said she would just spend the day at the beach, and then I asked her, would there be any drugs or alcohol, because she's drank in the past, she's smoked weed in the past, stuff like that. And she kind of sat there for a second, took a second to respond, and said, no, I think I would just smell the roses completely sober for one last time. And then I immediately asked her again, so is there any guarantee that you'll wake up tomorrow? And she said no. And I'm like, so why don't you smell the roses every single day like it's your last day alive? Like, why would you purposefully do something that'll harm your mental state and body and prevent you from fully living an authentic life just because you feel like you have an extra day when there's really no guarantee that you do?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because that shows that her vision of like experiencing life to the fullest is actually being sober.
Definitely. And I've started to do this thing where I've started to ask her more philosophical questions because she loves it. But whenever we start to get into the deep conversations, she says, like, oh no, this is going to cause me to spiral. And I think I'm really happy that she said that, because I was reflecting on it yesterday. And I don't think it's spiraling what she's doing. I think that she's mistaking the word spiraling for self-reflection. I think she's actually allowing herself to reflect for the first time ever. And I think the reason why she's afraid of it is because she's afraid of what she might find about herself.
She's so comfortable in her ignorance.
Yes. That's a quote from Plato's Republic. It's some people are so comfortable in their ignorance that they're hostile to anyone who tries to point it out, which is, I mean, it's Plato. It's a quote for a reason.
So even if she in herself, because of the questions you ask her, starts discovering different things, she sees it as spiraling because it's changed and it's different and it's not what she's used to.
Exactly.
And it's like breaking down her old sense of self.
Exactly. It's getting rid of who she thought she was for who she thinks she might be able to be, and that scares her because she's so comfortable with who she's been.
That's the thing about the brain. It wants to say the same so badly, even if change is for the better. Your brain thinks any change is bad because your brain likes to be comfortable. So any change is scary. And it's also because we like the predictable and we like to think we know what's going to happen next. We never really do, but we like the illusion of safety and comfort and believing we know what's going to happen next. So if you do something different, your brain's going to feel resistance. That's why it's so hard for people to change their lives and get into new habits. And that's why it's January 21st and most people's New Year's resolutions, they're not even doing them still because our brain doesn't like change, even if it's for the better. So you have to realize that whenever you're trying to build a new habit or change anything in your life, it's not going to feel good at first just because your brain is so used to what you used to be doing.
Unbelievably unnatural, it'll feel like.
Right. But you have to push through that phase and to the point where your brain gets used to the new thing. But it is crazy the tendency we have to seek comfort as opposed to growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, James Clear in his book Atomic Habits talked about a client of his who really wanted to lose weight, and what James Clear had him do, instead of saying, okay, you're going to go to the gym 6 times a week, here's your splits, here's the exercises you're going to do, he said, okay, on X, Y, and Z days, you will go to the gym for 5 minutes, and then you will leave. That's it. And the guy was confused, but he did it. And then James later explained to him the reason why he wanted him to do this is to build the habit. You can't excel at a habit before you've built it. You need to build the foundation for the house before you can build the house. If you try to excel at it too quickly, you'll probably burn out.
How would you spend your last day on Earth? Swim in the morning?
Definitely swim in the morning. Definitely ocean jump at some point.
Oh yeah, me too, for sure.
Probably ocean jump sunset.
And then hot tub.
Yeah.
That's a peak. I think a peak day for me definitely involves an ocean jump and a hot tub after the ocean jump at sunset.
I'd love to go on some type of hike too.
Really?
Yeah, I think just being at the top of a really cool mountain that'd be a great way to spend my last day. Like if on my last day you could take out the time it takes to travel everywhere and you could just travel somewhere like that, I think if I could just teleport myself to a really cool mountain or just the base of the mountain so that I could hike it, I think that would be great. That would be a really good way.
Like you just die when you get to the summit?
I mean, I would want to look out on the summit first, but then yeah, I think watching a cool sunset from the summit, maybe eating a nice steak up there.
Oh yeah.
Then I finish, take my last gulp of water, have a nice exhale, just and then just like that, just completely wiped off the face of the earth.
Such an interesting concept because
it is.
We so hardly ever think about our own death. I feel like it's not something that, especially like Western culture, talks or thinks about very often.
It's definitely not, and it's not only do we not talk about it, but we kind of soften it. When people talk about it, it's, oh yeah, everyone's gonna die one day. Like, it doesn't matter. That's just like the little superficial thought that we tell each other. But I've never ran into someone who said that and then hasn't eventually had the thought of, wait, we are gonna die, and it freaks them out. But they just think, oh yeah, everyone's gonna die. Maybe I shouldn't think about this. The idea of being wiped off the earth and have everything you know and love just be gone from you, it freaks people out. So they choose to just push it away and not think about it, not reflect on the idea at all.
And the problem with that is then you might end up living a life you don't actually want to live. And then at the end of your life, when you're nearing death, you start reflecting, and then you realize you wanted to do things differently, but you don't have a chance at that point to change anything because you're 98 on your deathbed. Whereas I think thinking about death at 21 and 19 gives you a different perspective, because you think, okay, when I do die, because it's inevitable, how do I want to look back on my life? And this is, we're talking about this too, people doing things for other people. I think thinking about your death helps you remember what the point of everything is. Like, on your deathbed, are you really going to think, oh, I should have done that thing to make Sally happy? No, you're going to think, I should have filled my cup before trying to fill everyone else's.
Exactly. You can't fill up everyone else's cup if your cup is empty. You need to prioritize your own happiness first, so that if you want to help other people become happy, you're able to. But if you're constantly trying to make other people happy and you completely neglect your own self-interests, it's just going to not work out well for you.
Why do you think most people end up doing things they don't want to do in their lives?
Why do I think people? I think it's just because they're listening to societal norms and not creating thoughts of their own. Like they're not reflecting on really what they want enough. It's they hear things that maybe people around them want, or people of higher authority say they should do, and they just take it at face value, and they don't think about what they want. They just think about what someone else wants.
100%. I think it's so easy too to mix up the thoughts in your head of what is actually your own thought and what got planted there by society's expectations.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's just so much input happening all the time that if you don't reflect and separate all of the thoughts from others and your own, if you don't separate those two, then there can really be a mix of what's your own, what's not, and whether or not you're living an authentic life.
Yeah, and I think obviously parents play a big part in that. Like a lot of people are scared to do things because they don't want their parents to be disappointed in them. I know there's a quote Jay Shetty says in his book about his parents wanted him to be a doctor, what was it? Jay Shetty had 3 options. He could either be a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure.
Yeah.
And now he's like the biggest podcast guy in the world. He's super successful, obviously spreading so much wisdom, making wisdom go viral. Mm-hmm. Shout out Jay Shetty, amazing guy.
Unbelievable books, podcasts.
We got to be on his podcast at some point.
One day.
But anyways, he deviated. He became a monk. Doctor, lawyer, failure. He said, "I'm going to be a monk." And to his parents at first, that was a failure. They saw no value in that.
0.
But he trusted his own intuition, and he trusted what he should go after and what he should do. And he ended up where he is now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people, when their parents want them to do something, it's so hard to go against the grain. And we're very lucky, and I'm very grateful that our parents are super supportive of everything we do and just want us to be happy. But I know that that's not the case for everybody. And for those of you who are going through that, maybe your parent doesn't support your decisions, what you want to do, just know that your priorities come first, and your parents deep down, they just want you to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're teaching you from what they think they know best, but the truth is they don't know best for you because you're the only person that knows best for you. Now, if you say do what your parent wants you to do, you might become that doctor, but then you might look back on life and end up resenting your parent for making you go into that field. And then you have a worse relationship with them down the line. Whereas maybe you have a weird relationship with them for a little bit as you go after the thing you want to do and they maybe don't support it. But then they might come around. And then when they do, then you'll have a better relationship after all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And something I want to say too is what you want to do doesn't have to make sense to other people in the beginning. Like it can seem so crazy, especially with Sammy's music too. If he were to tell a lot of people, and I mean, when I was telling people that he was starting to make music, a lot of people just called him crazy. Like it was just
really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, but there were people that I told because I was like, oh yeah, he's starting music. It's pretty cool. But they're like, oh, he's just trying to become another influencer. I'm like, no, like he has a shot at this. This is what he wants to do. And so if it makes sense to you, it doesn't have to make sense to other people. And there's a philosopher named Soren Kierkegaard, and one of his biggest ideas is taking a leap of faith. And to him, that pertains to religion, being religious, being a Christian, despite the lack of any type of logic or reason. He says, despite this, I still believe, which is him taking the leap of faith. But in my interpretation, that can also be seen as taking the leap of something that doesn't make sense to other people, but you believe in it so much with your heart, soul, and being that you are going to follow it to its fullest capacity, even if there's no logic or reason behind it. You will dedicate every second of every day to it, and you won't listen to anything negative that anyone has to say about it.
Quoting another one of my lyrics, I say, because I say leap of faith in this part, I say, this is my song, Never Know. I say, because you could fail at what you hate, or you could win at what you're supposed to do. I'd rather take a leap of faith than if I trip, I'm falling towards the truth. So the first part of that, you could fail at what you hate. This is also a Jim Carrey thing. He talks about how, did we talk about Jim Carrey on this yet, or was that just before we recorded?
No, we haven't talked about Jim Carrey
Oh,
yet.
well, we could get to that in a second. But you could fail at what you hate. It's a Jim Carrey quote in some interview where he's talking about how his dad was an accountant. His dad hated his job, but he chose a safe route. Safe, you make your money, you do your thing. It's the comfortable, safe road for taking care of his family, right?
Yeah, just the nuclear family standard.
Yeah, but he didn't enjoy it at all. And then one day he got fired from a job he hated, and then their family struggled financially. So you can fail at what you hate doing. There's nothing saying that job that you're gonna do that everyone sees as a safe, comfortable, acceptable thing. There's nothing saying that can't go wrong also. So if it's all up in the air, why not do something you actually enjoy? I remember I had a conversation with this girl one time, and she said, she was like an influencer kind of thing, and she said she didn't love the idea of relying on other people for her income. And I didn't think of this then, but afterwards I got home and I was like, wait a second. Every job, you rely on other people for your income.
Definitely.
If you're an influencer, you rely on your audience. If you're a musician, you rely on your audience, yes. But if you're working at Starbucks, you rely on your boss, and you rely on your manager, and you rely on your coworkers. And yes, like Starbucks is obviously always going to have customers, but you're still relying on other people for your income. It's just in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think I'd rather be in charge of the ship, because then if the ship crashes, it's on me. And if the ship sails for eternity, it's also on me. Second part of that lyric, I'd rather take a leap of faith than if I trip, I'm falling towards the truth. It's kind of what I just explained. If you take the leap of faith, even if you take the leap and you trip, you're still moving in the right direction, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, I would much rather fail towards something that I want to be doing, because then at least I was in the pursuit of something that I wanted, rather than succeed at something that I hated. I would much rather be, if it was an alternate universe and I wanted to play basketball, I would much rather spend every waking moment playing basketball, and eventually a tragic accident happens and I don't make it to the NBA. I would much rather have that happen than if I just wanted to settle for a life of mediocrity and basketball, I just kept it as a hobby, but I said, you know what? No, that's unrealistic. I won't do that. That seems too far-fetched. I'll just go for something safer. And now I'm the manager at some corporate job.
Right. And talking about realistic, we hate the word realistic.
We love talking about the word realistic, but we cringe and we always look over at each other if we're in a setting and someone says it, just because it's
such a limiting word. And
completely.
And I got this from Russ's audiobook. Shout out Russ, huge inspiration. Book is called It's All in Your Head. Highly recommend.
Unbelievable book.
But he says the word realistic is a term that, when internalized, breeds a life of mediocrity. Because realistic is just comparing what you want to do to what's been done in the past. That's what realistic is. It's oh, has this been done before? Okay, well then it's realistic. Has it not been done before? Okay, well it's not realistic. But talk about the Wright brothers.
Oh, yeah. So before the Wright brothers existed, no one had ever flown before. That just wasn't a thing. But the Wright brothers didn't see that as an impossibility. They saw that as a challenge. And before was it Thomas Edison that created the light bulb?
Yeah.
Before Thomas Edison existed, people didn't think that it was a natural thing to be able to walk into a room and be able to turn on a light on a switch on a wall. It's, oh, go light the candle. Oh, the candle's out. We need to go get another candle. We need to shape some more wax. But he thought, okay, I can change the world with this. I can create something that no one has ever created before. And going back to just the idea of realistic is, no one has ever lived your life before. So if someone says that's unrealistic, how would they know? They're basing that word off of other people's experiences that are completely different to yours. Not a single person on the face of the earth has grown up the same way that you do, had your exact thoughts at those moments, and just lived up until this moment at the same time. That's just never happened before. So using the word unrealistic is just, it's terrible. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Before the Wright brothers made the plane, it was unrealistic to fly.
Completely.
You think the people around their town and like their family and friends and stuff, when they said they wanted to fly, I'm sure everyone was like, that's not realistic. You're gonna make something that's just gonna take off like a bird? Ha, stupid.
Yeah, they were laughing.
Who's stupid? Who's laughing now?
Exactly. And they were so dedicated to that cause that, 1807, they were not, this was right around the beginning of industrialization. This wasn't a normal thing to create something that crazy. It was, okay, go work in a factory, create a family, and, just reproduce, and then you die. And that's it. The Wright brothers were so dedicated to their cause. Neither Wilbur nor Orville, those are the Wright brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright, neither of them married.
Really?
They were so dedicated to it that they said, no, wives can wait. We will create a plane. And that's exactly what they did.
Well, that's the other thing that I think about often too is pursuing your purpose and pursuing a relationship. Russ also talks about this in his book as well. The idea that so many people pursue relationships with the amount of enthusiasm and energy that they should put towards their passion and their purpose. People put relationships on a pedestal and think, if I just get this one relationship, I'll be happy. If I just get this one person, then that will satisfy my needs.
Mm-hmm. It's going back to tying your happiness to external things. It's just living as a means to an end.
Exactly. And I think the biggest issue with that with relationships is if you're saying, I'm not going to be happy till I get this girl, for example, then when you get that girl, maybe you're happy for a little bit. There's a honeymoon phase, everything is great. But if she does anything that you see as wrong in your eyes, which is wrong is just acting differently than what you want her to act,
mm-hmm.
then you're going to resent her because then she's not making you happy anymore. It's not her job to make you happy, but you saw her as a way to make you happy. So when she starts acting a different way, then you're not going to like her as much and you're going to see this as a problem. When it never was a problem because she was never supposed to make you happy. You have to be whole and complete by yourself before you have a functioning relationship.
Exactly. It goes back to the idea of change. You saw her, metaphorically speaking, you saw her as your happiness. So if she changes, then it's a change of your happiness. Right. And you become hostile because it's like, no, I wanted you to act this way.
Mm-hmm.
Like you made me feel good when you were acting like this. You can't change that. You're not allowed to do that. You are my source of happiness, but you can't tie your source of happiness to someone else like that. Like Sammy said, you need to be completely good on your own. And you do the way that I see it personally is if you are completely fine with the idea of staying single and remaining single indefinitely, I think that's the perfect point to where you can be in a relationship if you want it to be. If you're completely fine with remaining alone, then you're good to be in a relationship. If you feel like you need to have someone there, you feel like you have a dependence that you need to fill with someone else, I think you need to go back and you need to self-reflect on what really matters to you, and you need to create more fulfillment in your life so that when you are in a relationship with another person, you won't be dependent on them. You both need to be independent before you get into the relationship, and then that relationship will blossom.
Yeah, you guys are totally good independent, but then together you bring out each other's best qualities. Whereas when you're both dependent, then that causes things like jealousy and insecurity and anything like that, because then if someone acts in a way you don't want them to, like say you're dating a girl and she goes out and hangs out with her friends and she's at a bar or something, and then if you're jealous and insecure and you don't feel complete by yourself, you're going to be like, what are you doing? Where are you? Who are you with? And you're going to, because you see anything she does that might threaten the relationship as a threat to your happiness and as a threat to who you are as a person, because you're relying on her for that. But if you build up yourself first, then it's just a supplement. It's not going to make or break you, and you'd be fine at the end of the day if that person walked away, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Of course, you'd be sad if they did because, you like them. You've developed an emotional attachment to them.
Right.
But if something bad happens like that and they end up walking away, you will be okay.
Better to have loved than lost than never to have loved at all.
Whoa. Sounded like Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, that wasn't my quote. But I do have another quote in Let's Be Friends where I say, tell me, would you rather fall in love than fall apart and cry about it after, or wonder what we could have been if we just gave it a shot? Could be the one that got away or the one that you caught. So that's kind of a similar idea, a little bit different, but just like the same concept of even if things end, it's a learning experience and you have grown and you're better off for having gone through that experience.
Yeah. Definitely. And I just think if there's one takeaway out of this, it's just be authentic to yourself. And what I mean by that is, in my mind, authenticity is true alignment of what you think, what you say, and what you do.
Totally.
And if all three of those are in alignment, you are being completely authentic to yourself, and you are either taking steps towards what you really want in life, or you're already living the life that you want to be living.
Yeah, well said. I think taking time to be by yourself, and whether that's like meditating or journaling or just taking time to really figure out what it is that you want without the veil of society's expectations, without everyone else in your head trying to influence you in whatever way, without people questioning your abilities, without you questioning your own abilities. If you could do anything you wanted, what would you do? If there were no limitations, because there aren't.
There's not a single limitation out there. It's all in your head.
Yeah, on that note, want to call it? It's all in your head.
We'll see you next week.